Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Non-duality Dialogue with our facilitators, Ed Moskowitz and Pablo Sender. We're continuing on with our reading today from our book, Nothing to Grasp by Joan Tollefson. We are on page 70, and today's reader will be Susan. So, Susan, when you're ready, please unmute yourself and go right ahead.
Thought imagines a God out there and a self in here at the controls calling the shots. In fact, if you look closely, you discover that no independent entity can be found either out there or in here who is running the show or freely choosing what to want, what to think, what to care about, and what to do. When your car gets a flat tire and you respond in whatever way you do at that moment, that response is the movement of life, as is the tire going flat. Action happens, apparent choices occur, but there is no actor behind the action, no chooser behind the choices, no decider behind the decisions, no thinker behind the thoughts, no seer behind the seeing. To realize this directly is to wake up from the trance of blame, shame, guilt, retribution, and vengeance, all of which are predicated on the notion that there is an executive at the helm inside every body-mind, an independent unit of consciousness, a self that is freely choosing what to do. When we understand this clearly, it doesn't mean that we won't still put serial killers in prison or do everything possible to keep child molesters away from children, but perhaps we won't need to shame and blame these unfortunate people as well. Perhaps we can see the serial killer or the child molester with compassion, knowing that there but for the grace of God go I. And perhaps we will treat ourselves with compassion if we fail to measure up to our own ideals. This understanding doesn't in any way advocate denial or not taking responsibility in the sense of recognizing and acknowledging our mistakes, doing what we can to apologize or put things right, and perhaps taking a different course of action going forward if we can. It points rather to the possibility of understanding that in every moment we are doing the only thing possible at that moment, and so is everyone else. None of what happens is personal. This doesn't mean not having opinions, but rather having them in a bigger context. For example, if someone thinks that homosexuality or gender variance is an abomination against God, or that climate change is a hoax, or that white people should rule the world, I will most certainly disagree with that person. In some instances, I may try to change that person's mind or to do whatever I can to see that he or she doesn't act out of these views in ways that are harmful. But there will also be a recognition that this person is no more choosing to have the views that he has than I am choosing to have an opposite set of views. This absence of choice doesn't mean this person might not change his mind in the next moment, but if he does, it won't be because of free will, for no such thing actually exists. Although this person's worldview is ignorant and wrong from my perspective, nonetheless, I can see that there is a place in this universe for everything that appears. After all, it's all here. From the perspective of evolution and the survival of the species, the checks and balances provided by people with different ideologies may serve some kind of survival function, or from the perspective of cosmic entertainment, it may just make for a good drama. But in one way or another, it's all part of the dance. It's all happening. It is as it is. Seeing this bigger picture doesn't mean I won't still have my opinions or play my part, but there will also be a recognition in that all of us are an expression of one self, that together we make up one whole vision and one whole movement. that everything is an aspect of the same infinite self-realization, all of it one dance, and that in every moment each of us is doing the only thing possible at that moment. Does this mean that the next moment is already determined? Can we see that the next moment is actually only a fantasy?
Okay, that's a mouthful, and and of course we've heard this quite a bit in the last couple of weeks, and so it doesn't shock us. But obviously, there are lots of people with views that say this is complete nonsense, and that and you have to take responsibility, and you're in charge, and this guy is bad, and you should have done something different, and even while we could hold these views, in the next moment we could think of someone we hate, and or some politician that doesn't seem to be doing anything in the global interests, and we immediately jump to the other mode of thinking, which is they're at fault. There's nothing in them that we could feel compassion for. They're doing it wrong, and we're doing it right. And the whole materialistic, selfish perspective. And so somehow, we could switch to that mode with no trouble at all. In fact, we're raised to have this more limited view, because we started out, as children with this global view, and it was drummed in our heads. No, you've got to have the right limited view, and you have to behave in the right personal way. And this way of looking at things is not something that can easily be changed. So part of the compassion we could feel for ourselves is to notice when we're switching to our old habits and views, or when we're judging others with these old views, and to see this way of looking at things as sort of a correction in reference to our limited views, and not necessarily to fight for these concepts so much as to be open more to what's presently happening and less to the storyline of what's happened in the past and what will definitely happen in the future. So these words are best served when we point back to our own experience.
Yeah, I think part of what she's saying there, like she says, if the person has a view that seems to be wrong, I may correct it, but what she's saying is this is a self-regulating system. So the system itself regulates itself. So if, because this is what happens in daily life, there is somebody's doing something that is unhealthy, and then our personality will tend to correct that. And so what should we do? Refrain the personality from correct it, identify with the personality and say, I am right and I have to correct this at all costs. And I think part of the attitude that she is proposing is the personality correcting the other personality is part of the self-regulating cosmos, and you just witness the cosmos. You neither refrain the personality from doing it, nor you identify with it and try to change the other, no matter what. And it's a subtle position because we are always so identified with the doer that there is the sense of, okay, these teachings are telling me not to do, and then we become the stopper or the breaker, the one that hits the brake, and it's neither hitting the accelerator nor the brake. It's let the system regulate itself. These are the gunas playing among the gunas, and that's a subtle. Perhaps at the beginning we have to identify more ourselves with stop doing it because we are so keen on doing things, but eventually we just realize, we are neither the doer nor the one that stops the doing.
When you read what she says here, it seems just so beautifully simple that if I can just accept what unfolds in the moment that I'm in, and then do the best I can, and to look at other people and see that they're caught in the same thing, and so this is just the play of the moment. Why can't we all get that? Now I know that's just a ridiculous question. I'm getting that slowly, but
so it's something more radical than that she's trying to point to, and it's that what we call the personality can't possibly do this. And what we really are is already doing it. In other words, what we are as Atma or being is totally accepting, totally weaves in and out effortlessly with whatever's occurring, totally acts when appropriate and withholds when appropriate. It's already, who you really are is doing that. There's nothing that you could do to make who you really are better at doing it or not doing it. On the other hand, the personality can't help but act personally and see things personally and react personally and be formed and shaped and driven by the habits that the personality is. And so there's this, you could say, these two truths. What she's describing is how reality is already occurring. And what we have to see is how the personality is fitting into how reality is already occurring. And so seeing where the effects are and seeing where the causes are allows us to free up unnecessary or necessary blockages, to see everything as a necessity, both within ourselves and others is to be put in this bigger context. And if we could identify more with this higher aspect of ourselves, or shift the emphasis toward the higher view, that puts a balance and an intelligence into what we call lower stuff.
We have to be careful how we impose that on other people. I think just having that for oneself, or well, has it for the all, but at the same time, most people are functioning out of their personalities, as are we. And so I found, for example, well, I'm kind of in the middle of a situation, and my closest friend is having to seek legal advice to sue a part of my old family, and so it's really a bizarre situation to be in, and yet at the same time I'm trying to help her understand that it's just what has to happen, and that she doesn't have to compound it by, going after them for more than the mistake that they already made, and it's stuff like that, and just trying to help her grasp it without dramatizing it and making it even bigger. And but talking to someone about that is a little tricky. So we can hold this perspective as best we can, but we can't really expect other people to be able to do the same. Although sometimes, sometimes they can hear, but also what I'm hearing too is that it has to just play out the way it has to play out, and it will, and it is, and so I don't have to fix it. I don't have to resist it or anything except simply show up. So I guess that's
I think that's a good example of what we are mentioning. You show up, which you cannot do otherwise. We are talking as if we are choosing, but it's for us to understand the situation. So you show up and you let yourself play the part that the system needs yourself to play. So if the system needs this personality play the part of advising, then you advise, or play the part of say you shouldn't, or trying to stop it. Then you let sometimes it's what comes to your personality that is its role. What I notice is that when we don't, it's like the personality can do everything to the right extent, as long as we are not pushing it further. And by pushing it further, I mean, in a weird way, when I feel I am this and this is my view and this is what should prevail, that identification is like it gives it more energy. And perhaps that's what creates some kind of imbalance. If you let the personality respond and you have this more cosmic view, impersonal view, then the personality will do what it's supposed to do in the context, or in that context, and not more or less. It's a little like that. I think if anything, what produces the problem is the identification with, not the action in or the inaction in itself.
One of the things that I've noticed in currents is that you're talking to one person and you think you're trying to convince that person of one thing or another, when the actual message was for someone else that was listening, and they got something out of it, and it totally changed their life, and you had no idea that was what was supposed to happen. And so we just, what we were presented with the situation, and we're presented with our response to the situation, and both things show up.
So what do you do when you're talking to some? What can you do when you're talking to somebody that has delusions? Like they think there's cameras in the thermostat and the fire extinguisher. How do you talk to them in a healthy way that helps them? That just got me confused.
You refer them to a professional.
Well, she's in a nursing home, but she's not getting the kind of help she needs.
Well, then, you could try to get her the help she needs, or just accept the situation for what it is. I mean, that's what's happening.
Right.
And what you can do and how you contribute is do the best you can, and what happens. There's lots of situations that we would prefer not to have happen, and it seems like we're powerless to change it sometimes. But what we can always do, is be with the situation, whatever it is. We could be there. We could totally be there with whatever is happening. Be with our emotions, be with our thoughts, be with their situation, with their thoughts, be with the whole thing, and somehow that kind of doing optimizes the situation.
Because here it's not a question of what we should do in the sense that we should act in this way or talk to this person in say this or that. This is more than what to do, is how to do it. How to do whatever you were going to do anyway without knowing this. So again, what do you do there? Whatever your mind may come up with, that's what you do. The difference is you see it playing. You see that this is the self-regulating system we are talking about. So you are not doing something different. You do the same in a different way without that identification. So sometimes there is nothing you can do but just to be present, as Ed was saying, and that's what you do. But without the sense of I am the one that is doing it, or choosing it, or I should be doing something else. You just are present and let the situation play itself. But we always keep coming to what should I do? And this is not a code of morality, this is right, this is wrong.
Yeah, the more that we can be okay with what is ever happening seems to calm everybody. Seems to let everybody be more okay with the situation. On the other hand, being okay with the situation does not mean not acting sometimes. Sometimes anger is appropriate, and being okay with the anger is what is necessary. Or, taking the stand is the thing that's important, and being okay with taking the stand. It's not, again, it's the how you do it as opposed to what you do. So we can't give any definitive generalized answers here, because that would be a mistake.
We are saying it's how we do it. Is that general?
Yes, that's as general as we can get. But even that may imply something that is not meant. So, it's keeping, it's a sense of presence that you want to bring to whatever situation is occurring. And that we practice, in meditation and in calm times, and when it's not difficult, so that it can carry over when the situation seems difficult. But again, depending on how good we are at doing that, it might not happen or it will happen. I mean, we find ourselves, losing presence and being caught in past thoughts and reacting to fears of the future. And that's what's happening. And to the extent that we can be aware that that's what's happening, it reduces that happening. But, don't be so hard on yourself in whatever's happening, because you've stated the intention of doing the best you can and wishing the best for the whole situation.
Yeah, sometimes just being present when the situation is difficult is is all you really can do. It's not that you're going to be able to fix her mind or change her life or make things necessarily better, although just simply being there may do that. I think, sometimes we want to just get away. We want to bolt because it's uncomfortable or it's unpleasant or hurting us in some way. I'm not saying that that's true for you, Stefan, but I can recognize times when I have to make myself keep my seat because whatever's going on is really challenging, and I'd so much rather, not do that. I mean, just shut down the situation or go away. But that's the trigger for me to step back and get bigger and recognize that I don't have to fix anything. I don't have to change anything. That things will simply play out, and that it's okay to do the best you can and not have grand expectations. But it's sometimes difficult to just be present for suffering, and I think that's a huge challenge that we meet on a regular basis is to just is be with the suffering instead of trying to get away from it. I mean, if somebody is going to do you physical harm, you need to get away from that, but not emotionally. Physically maybe, but not. We don't need to abandon a situation because we can't fix it, and sometimes that's the desire, is to get away. So for me, if I see that part come up, that's my trigger for getting bigger, stepping back and getting bigger, and not having an expectation that I am meant to change whatever's wrong in the situation. It may not be wrong. Sometimes that's the angle that I'm going to take. If it's someone I can talk to about that, I can say, listen, this feels bad, it feels wrong, but what if it isn't? What if we've all done all these things? We've been perpetrators, at rescuers, and victims, and this is your time to be a whatever. Maybe that's okay, maybe it's right, and rarely, but occasionally, I can have a conversation like that. But for the most part, I think we just have to show up.
You know, just a little thing, because of one of the lessons that Pablo and Michelle did. And I've been wanting to tell you about this, Pablo. I've been wanting to write on 3 different things and tell you, but just a little aside on this particular one. I delivered flyers on Saturday with a young woman who has taken a course and is teaching yoga at the church, and just a phenomenal thing. And it all happened because of the TS. The change that it's making here. She did 6 months of her training. She taught it at the little church. This is a small little community, and I thought it would raise $300 or $400. It raised almost $1,300. And so now she's teaching 4 times a week. Well, on Saturday when when she came here, and I would drive because I know everybody out here, she got in and I could just tell she was weary. And she said, "Oh, I don't know why I'm doing this." So she's having a special event, a community event. All the funds are going to go to the little church on this Saturday coming, and then there's going to be snacks afterwards. And I said to her, I said, "Oh, dear Ida, just you know what? I just know as we go out today, we'll know why you're doing this." And I said, "Let's just open our hearts wide open and just let it happen." Well, I could not begin to tell you what happened. Her and I have talked about it twice. What happened on Saturday in that 3.5 hours. The people that we talked to, the new little stories. And when it was all over, I said to her, I said, "Now, do you know why you're doing this?" And she literally started to cry. and it was, you know, sometimes it's so hard to stay there or to be there for some of it. But yet, I think, Susan, you're right, that when you can have that communication, when you can sort of open yourself up to whatever it is, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. A couple of people that have been dreadfully lonely, and one that was hurt. Like it's hard to explain. And just this little thing, and at the end of it, I was thinking to myself, the power that we have, the unbelievable power that resides in each of us. So there was one person, he's only lived in this community for a little over a year. I've never met him. For 4 years, he sat in a chair waiting for a kidney transplant, and he's promised himself if he ever got a kidney, he would do woodworking. But when I saw what he was doing, and he invited us to look at it, I saw he was doing one particular thing, using the wrong tool. And I thought, should I say something? People don't like it when you tell them they're doing something wrong. But I thought, no, do it. We were only there for about 15 minutes. He's going to come on Saturday, and I'm taking the tool that I was telling him about. It just, like, he was so excited. He said, "I can't believe this." Now, that's just one of all these strange little wonderful things that happen. And yet we're afraid to open ourselves up. Like, my mind was thinking, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? And so I think that the power that resides in us to do things for other people that we never know what it's doing for them is unbelievable. Like it just really, you know, I just couldn't get over it. Anyway, I just think we're much more powerful than we realize. Over.
Yeah, and we need to keep that, because those are occasions in which you see some result. We need to keep in mind that also when we don't see any evident effect. That's what Ed was saying. We may never know that somebody that overheard something and that may have changed, you know, that person's life. So we need to trust that we are participants of a far wider order. We are not here to say what should be done, what shouldn't be done. We need to just participate and go along, you know, with as much as an awareness of the true nature of the global thing, and then just that's it. It's very simple.
I don't want to belabor the point, Pablo, but I think the thing is by seeing the effects that it does have, it even opens up, because the effects that we don't see must be 100 times more than that. So that's this unbelievable mystery. Like, in this little community, I've thought of this quite a few times in the last number of months. The TS has had this gigantic impact that nobody except me knows about, and it's huge. Like I'm blown away by that. Over.
We haven't read anything. Oh, well, anything more from here, I mean.
Okay, we could.
5 minutes. Let's go.
We can go to the next chapter. And,
oh, was that the end of the chapter?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Then we are okay. Yeah. Yes. No, I think that's something that because one main obstacle of our minds is that lack of confidence, that doubt. Doubt is normally enumerated as one of the obstacles for the spiritual life. So it's nice when we see some results, and then we have to make the point to realize, as we are saying, this is always the case. So it's not so much about answering questions. So we always talk about why this, why that. What wisdom means is not that you have the answer to all questions. It's just that you realize the questions are not necessary. It doesn't matter. Everything is fine.
Sometimes I do find that I'm wondering if my body is having to deal with what my psyche is avoiding, and sometimes that happens. Like lately, I'm sort of amping up in a few different arenas in my life where I have to be on, I guess, and I see my sleep is broken. Or even I was so surprised last week. I was treating a patient that wasn't particularly difficult for me, a patient I've known for a long time, and I broke out with, I thought I had a flea in my pants, and it wasn't a flea. I got a little patch of hives. Like, hives? Where did this come from? I mean, I've had them in the past, but it's been years. And I in the moment I certainly wasn't feeling stressed, but on some level I must be stressed. So anyway, things like that. Makes me question, here's the doubt, whether I'm, just fooling myself into thinking that, because overall I felt I have been outwardly feeling less stressed and more just, I mean, even though circumstances have been challenging, I really don't feel like I'm entangled. I really don't. And so on some level, am I entangled and I don't know it? Or is the body having to take the brunt of something? I don't know. I wonder sometimes about that.
Just look at your bigger body, the world. So, if you take everything into account, there's horrible stuff going on. There's wonderful stuff going on. It's all mixed up. It's all being experienced. And the location of what's being experienced where moves around.
Moves around a lot because I really spend a lot of time educating myself on certain health concerns. And if I look at all of that stuff, oh my God, it's overwhelming. And yet I live in a place that's where I can balance that, so that I have tranquility around me when I'm at home. So I think it helps me keep it all in perspective.
Yeah, but I don't know necessarily that if, of course, there is a deep connection between the psyche and the body, but to me they are still two different, two different realities, different also relatively speaking, in the sense that the psyche may be dealing with something, correctly, but there may be some stress being put on the body nevertheless, and sometimes it's inevitable in the sense that you may be calm, very calm mentally, but if you are running, your body will be tired. So of course, if you are running and you are worried, it will be worse. But to some extent, there are certain things that will affect the body, and as we do sometimes with the idea of the horse, then you listen to the body and see what you can do so that the body can have more rest. I wouldn't assume immediately that if the body is feeling the brunt, it's because the psyche is also feeling the brunt. It may not be.
Hmm. I guess I felt a little guilty for putting it on the body.
I know.
Making the body deal with it.
Both you and Deborah are feeling guilt for feeling so good.
Well, I can't say I walk around elated. I don't have any chicken joys to talk about. But life is good. I mean, I don't walk around feeling, bad.
Maybe we all should get some chicken.
Chicken.
Try.
I was kind of curious if it wasn't the guy who delivered the chicken that you're more taken by. Wink, wink.
I'm not so sure his wife would approve, who was sitting beside him or in the vehicle.
Okay.
The heart wants what the heart wants, right?
Oh.
It doesn't know anything about wives and husbands and.
We'll call it chickens, Deborah.
Well, no, but if you could see this little flock, like, I mean, it's just.
Well,
I wish I could send you some pictures.
Take a video and send it to us.
Yeah, take a picture.
Could it really?
Yeah.
All right,
of course.
do that.
Please.
Okay.
I don't know
Now,
about video.
now we want to meet
I don't know if I
them.
can do video, but I can do pictures.
Yeah. I'll take a picture. I'll blow it up. I'd like to see who Garfunkel is.
Oh, it's Samson who has taken my heart, though.
Oh.
Yes, he is. Oh, he is so sweet.
Garfunkel is feeling jealous. Okay. Thanks, everyone. We have to sail away. And, see you next week.
All right, you guys.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.